Good evening. Tonight is December 20th, 2022, and this is a meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission. Our first item is to review and approve minutes. Tonight, we do not have any to review or approve. Our second item is to sign bills.
No bills.
No bills, Andy. Our third item is the meetings and hearings, and our first item is a continued public hearing. It's regarding the notice of intent filed by Cypress Ave Development Partners LLC for the construction of 66 townhouse-style senior housing units with accessory clubhouse, access driveways, stormwater management facilities, and associated site grading at 1 Greenbrier Drive and 255 Gulf Street. And we've many hearings into this now, and we're now down to 53 units from 66, correct?
Correct.
All right, John.
At the last hearing, we,
Stand over the microphone, John.
oh, I'm sorry.
Please. Yeah, it should be an easel if you need it.
No, I don't have one. At the last hearing, we presented the plans that you have before you. As you know, we reduced the scope of the project by about 20%. We started off at 66 units. We're down to 53 units. Part of the reduction was to not disturb about a 5-acre piece of the project that had 12 units on it that would have also required a wetland crossing and intermittent stream crossing. So by removing that, we removed 12 units from the plan and gained about 5 acres of open space. The other outstanding item, again, this was submitted at the time of the last hearing, was this property is in a flood zone A, which does not have an elevation associated with it, although there is a flood zone. So we performed a flood study in accordance with FEMA requirements, which is, that was submitted to the town last month's meeting, and that's going into FEMA. It was an extensive study that encompassed over 100 acres and verified drainage outfalls from every other development around, including outfalls from Interstate 290. As part of that, some of the off-grading for the detention basin was within a portion, with having 3 species of wetland plantings. One of the questions posed in that is, are there additional plantings beyond those 3 species that the commission would want? We had our wetland scientists look at what we were planting. Those are species that would do well in that area with the surrounding vegetation. It fits in. If there's anything additional that you would suggest or want, we're more than happy to include those as well. One other item that was requested was to show all of the sewer infrastructure. This is going to be serviced by an on-site septic system. We did, just before we were finalizing the layout, again, where we reduced the number of units, we did design the septic field itself. That was submitted to the Board of Health for review. And now that we have the final layout and unit locations, we did just, because you have to, every invert out of every unit, invert out of every septic tank, in and out, invert into all the sewer laterals. So we just wanted to make sure everything was finalized before we completely laid that out. That has been laid out, and that will be submitted to the Board of Health as well. So that's complete. And just for reference, there is only 2 tanks that are within the 100-foot buffer zone. Everything else is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So there's really not much disturbance or impact from any of the tanks associated with the septic system. We did just today receive a review letter from Graves Engineering. I had reached out to them last week and told them that, you know, we're trying to make sure that we do all of our revisions and make sure that we have like one complete set that deals with any comments from your board as well as the planning board. Again, we received that today, and barring you know, a couple of typos. So the direction we'd like to do is make sure that we believe we've addressed pretty much all of your comments. Again, we have everything into both the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and the Board of Health. And just want to make sure that if there's anything specific that you would like incorporated as part of the plan, we can do that. And I think we're at the home stretch with Planning Board. So that's the long and short. Any questions?
Chris?
Did the leach fields move at all?
No.
Same place? Okay.
Same spot. And actually, it's because of the reduction in the units, it was reduced
Smaller.
in size.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to take a look at the landscaping plan and the
Okay.
species count.
And it's the last page of the site plan set, the very last page. So if you have any additional, we have high bush blueberry, winterberry, and sweet pepper bush. And we have locations for those specified on the plans.
Just looking for a mic.
Well, there's a lot of plants in there.
Yeah.
Right, you can go ahead.
And
All set.
And this is an area too, where again, we're gonna be doing compensatory flood storage, so I don't think we're gonna have any issues with, you know, making sure that it takes and it's wet in terms of the ground application.
Okay.
Yep.
Ken?
I'm all set.
Andy?
No, I think I had a couple of minor comments. I think, I think just a formal response to the original review
Yeah.
from May, just to close out the record, and then if we can get the updated wetland protection form with the new areas, because obviously we can't do the order conditions until we get those. I think I was all set at this point. I think we've come a long way, so.
All right. Alea? By the way, Alea is our new Concom agent. Nicer first.
Nice to meet you. You'll probably get sick of me.
We've already warned it, so.
All right, does anyone in the public have any questions to come? Can you stand and state your name and address,
You
please?
can use the microphone. over
Yeah.
there, please.
While he's getting ready, can I ask
Sure, go
one
ahead.
question? Okay. John, remind me of the bigger plans. Are there wetlands nearby that you might expect other species to come and reseed naturally?
I'm not following. Any other wetlands nearby?
Well, is it possible, you have basic shrub species here. I'm thinking of things like sensitive fern, et cetera, that would eventually creep in if there were a source nearby.
Oh, okay.
But I expect the site's going to be pretty heavily disturbed.
Well, there are, in some of the areas that we are going to be for the access drive, that's where some of the filling is going to be. We may be able to we'll take soils from there, if we can also take some of the plantings from there.
Yeah, if you can save some of the plants,
Right.
stockpile
Yeah,
them and then
yeah.
put them in,
We can
that
do
would
that.
help. Okay. All set, thank you.
What's that?
Thanks for waiting.
George Germano, 6 Redwood Lane, Shrewsbury. Couple questions. I apologize if I asked this before, but for the FEMA study, was the road taken into consideration?
Yes, this development was taken into consideration.
But specifically, was the road taken into consideration?
road?
The
Yes.
road, the access road into,
Yes,
so that was part of the FEMA study?
yes.
Okay. And as part of that study, well, as part of that road consideration, I know it's a separate project. That's part of the challenge here, right? We have separate projects on top of projects to create one project. Was there consideration to runoff and storage as far as that, salts, fertilizers, whatever, associated with that road, seeing it's so close to the wetland?
Yes, and those, there is, the way that the road that was designed, there is a rain garden that was designed at the center of that cul-de-sac. So that's receiving runoff from the road that's getting treated.
In the upland section, right? But in the access road leading up abutting all
Yes.
the abutters there?
Yes.
That's.
No, we're capturing that runoff into deep sump catch basins, and that is being put into, that is getting treated through a Vortechnic proprietary type unit, and then that is being discharged. So that is getting treated independently from the cul-de-sac.
Has a snow storage area been designated for that
There's
road?
multiple snow storage areas throughout the site.
For that road that's already been designated and planned
Yes.
out? Okay. Question, on that second upland site, I mean, I think one of the key considerations was that that wouldn't be developed. Is there a commitment that that will not be developed?
Yes, absolutely.
How is that commitment done?
Because once this site is permitted, we cannot make any changes to it unless we came back in front of the planning board and the conservation commission. And the way that the site is laid out, there are units placed so that physically there's no way to access down there because it would be blocked by where we have
Okay.
proposed development. So there's not like a stub area where you could extend the road further and cross over the wetlands and get to it. The way that we have it designed, physically, there's no place to
No,
gain an
understood.
access road
I
down.
think my question
And
was.
once it's developed and approved, nobody's coming back in for a revised submission to add, phase two. And we'll make that a condition that there's no additional development in that 5-acre parcel.
I think that would make sense considering that, that was a key, a blocker, is that second upland section, and to put a commitment in there that that couldn't be developed.
That would be more of a planning board item, and that could be in the conditions of approval of a planning board decision.
Planning board's after the fact. I mean, the key contributor here to this project going through this board was not to develop that upland area, right?
Well, if they want to have a condition in the conservation, what has more teeth is the decision of the planning board. But if
Well, I mean,
there's a condition that there's no more wetland fill or buffer zone work on that, that's fine by us.
I mean, the planning board will want to consider what the conservation committee will approve. So I respectfully disagree on that one, right? Is there anyone else? I apologize again if we've talked about this and I don't quite remember. It's been a long conversation. As far as the development plans themselves, how the site will be developed, how is that purely on the planning board, or is there some type of development plan for the site need to be shown to the conservation committee to make sure that it meets some requirements?
That's all part of the full set of plans. That is, and it's going to be a consistent set of plans that's in front of that's approved by both the planning board and the conservation commission. It's going to be one, so that there's no
Okay.
question of, oh, this is the plan from conservation, this is the plan from the planning board. So it's all one final set of plans that's going to be referenced in both decisions, and that's part of the development set.
So as part of the final approval, that'll require both committees to approve an overall plan based on a development plan being included?
Mr. Chairman,
Answer
if I
that,
could.
but the order of conditions will come out and say things like, you put up silt fences here, and will articulate some very specific things for conservation issues.
Yeah.
In terms of how it's developed, in terms of which unit gets built first and things like that.
No, I'm not concerned,
We
I'm
won't
saying
get into
is
that
how
detail.
is the site developed, right? Not
Well,
necessarily the
Mr. Chairman, if I
units
can,
built.
that was one of my original comments, was we need a phasing plan that shows the work to be done.
And it's, before, when we had two development areas, there was going to be a phase one and a phase two. Right now, it's going to be one phase.
But you still got a lot of dirt to move, I think we need to figure, I mean, you're not gonna go in there and clear cut the whole thing and fill it, we want to figure out.
And we do have a sequencing plan as part of our erosion control plan.
Okay.
And that's gonna say, we're gonna go in, clear the trees, the basin area, which is at the closest to the wetland, that is gonna get constructed first. The side slopes of that are gonna get stabilized, and then, as we work from that area into the site, there's gonna be obviously a cut and fill operation going on. And we do have the center portion of the site, which is the center part of like the loop road. That is going to be primarily a temporary basin so that we're not discharging water into the basin or anywhere near the wetlands. We're gonna have the center portion of the site as basically one large temporary, shallow but temporary basin that's gonna work to contain any runoff while we're doing the cut and fill operation. But it's not like we're gonna cut this portion of the site, it's a cut and fill operation. So it's technically one large phase, but we're gonna be containing all of the water in the center portion of the site during that cut and fill operation.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my original notes, it said phasing plan and then
Yeah.
a
And
rough
that's why
time, a
we
rough
had two-
timeline too. so
We
we
had
know.
2 areas. I talked with the site contractor, he's like, no, we wouldn't go and start crossing the wetlands and doing that other 5-acre piece concurrently. We would do the main site, and then we would, once that's taken care of, then we would do the wetland crossing and do the other 5-acre piece. Now that's out of the picture. It's because of the grades, we're gonna have to cut one side and create basically a plateau. And we have that whole, like I said, that whole center portion of the loop road is gonna contain the water during that process, so.
Just one final question. So you mentioned before for the septic, you said within the 100-foot buffer zone, there's going to be water storage? That's related to the septic? I'm sorry if I
No.
misheard that.
No, just I said for reference, when we're designing this, we have a septic system designed, that's outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We're gonna be servicing each unit, and how that, for sewer, how that works is, we have 3 to 4 units that will be discharging their sewage. It goes into a septic tank. And then from the septic tank, it goes into, then the gray water comes out of that and it basically goes into a street sewer, which ends up at the leaching field. I said, just for reference, within the 100-foot buffer to the wetlands, there would only be two septic tanks that are within a 100-foot radius of the wetlands, just so the vast majority of any of the infrastructure of the sewer is well outside the 100-foot buffer to the wetlands.
Okay, so is there going to be reclamation of the wetlands that are within that 100-foot buffer, or is just that it's within the 100-foot buffer?
It's within the buffer zone, it's within the areas of like the front yards of the units. That has nothing to do with replication or reclamation. If you have a septic tank in the front of your house,
I get-
which
I
goes
just-
into the sewer system.
Yeah, it goes into,
And it's in your front yard, that tank may be, only 2 tanks are within 100 feet of the wetlands. It has nothing to do with wetland replication or anything like that. It just happens to be that there's only 2 tanks within 100 feet of the wetland.
okay.
Does that make sense?
I guess so. I guess I'd have to take a look at the plans to understand a little bit better.
But there's nothing being discharged within the.
Nothing.
Nothing but there will be disturbance within the 100-foot buffer zone?
That's okay. The buffer zone is offset from the wetland resource line.
Okay.
So you move back 100 feet, and that's what's within our jurisdiction here.
Okay.
It's not to prohibit any use of that land.
Okay.
Right, you're required to file with the Conservation Commission if you are doing work within 100 feet of the wetland. So that's why we're here.
Yep,
So that's just their jurisdiction.
sure. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I don't see any. John, the booster pump for the water again, no resolution yet on that. But like you said, still planned to be in the basement area, either the rec hall or something else.
Right.
All right,
Which again, that's outside the 100-foot buffer as well.
okay. Is the commission all set right now? Martha, what are you gonna do with the planning plan? Are you gonna be making any further comments, or?
I would like to add into, if we do an order of conditions tonight, that some of the original wetland soils be set aside
Mhm.
and then put back into the replication area.
Okay.
All Andy, are you,
Yeah, I see, the only suggestion I had is because planning has kind of not really looked at this, because
Yeah.
they're kind of waiting for us to veto it out. I think we should probably just administratively keep the meeting open, so that way you can submit the final plans, you don't have to reopen the public hearing.
Right.
So we'll just keep it open, and then when they've got the
Okay.
plans approved by planning board, we'll just close it and issue the order of
And you
conditions.
let them know that.
Yeah, I will reach out to them, I'll reach out to them, let them know.
In all honesty, the plans, the comment letter we got from Graves Engineering, we already made the revisions and prepared a
Yes, I think they meet in January 7th or something like that, so we should be able to wrap it till next month.
Okay.
all right, so we'll continue this hearing until our next meeting, which is January 17th, 2023.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right, moving on to our next meeting, which is also a continued public hearing. It's regarding the notice of intent filed by 658 Boston Turnpike LLC, 118 Turnpike Road, Suite 200, Southborough, Mass., to develop a site for a car dealership, including with the alteration of wetlands and construction of 2 wetland replication areas at 658 Boston Turnpike.
That's- Yep.
Go ahead.
Hi. Mr. Chairman, James Tatro from Azimuth Land Design, here representing Whitney Street Home Builders. And since your last meeting, we submitted revised site plans dated December 12th with a cover letter and trying to address some of the comments that had come from the abutters. And I want to also note that we met with Mr. Truman, the town engineer, had asked for some more detail in regard to fire cistern. We met with Chief Vona in regard to that at his office, and we discussed just generally what, I'm going to move away from the microphone or turn it or something here, what they wanted to see in regard to fire cistern, and basically we suggested a location on the approach to the building. Again, if a fire engine would be coming down Route 9, heading toward the building, and off the side of that sort of central aisle. It's an area well outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, and what we probably would end up doing would be having a very small landscape spot, which right now is proposed to be pavement, where the controls would be, where connections would be made. But the fire cistern would have to be worked out in a bit of an iterative process with the chief and his lieutenants in regard to exactly the size and materials, number of vehicle maintenance bays, et cetera, within the building itself. But again, what we wanted to get out of that meeting with the chief is to confirm that there's no insuperable obstacle to the, excuse me, to the location we proposed, again, leading to the building, and that just what the process would be as far as nailing that down. And again, it's, apparently just sort of an iterative process of getting them more information about the building itself, the exact materials, et cetera, inside the building, for them to decide what the requisite size of tank is and exactly what controls they want and what. This would also be sprinklered. It would have, that building sprinkler system would have connection to this. And so there's a lot of details to work out still with that, but the bottom line is we would be able to install this outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We would end up probably taking a area of about 4 parking spaces, which are now proposed to be paved on the plan, which have been calculated as paved in all the drainage calculations, and making it a landscape surface where the actual connections are available for the fire department when they enter the site, should they enter the site fighting a fire. So that was one item. Another item was just to answer a couple of questions that had come up, had been posed by the abutters and their reviewer. And I just want to just briefly touch on those. We were asked, would we be filing a SWIP? And of course, it's more than an acre of alteration and has to be filed, I believe maybe it's 5 days or a week before actual work starts. In regard to the area that was altered in getting a machine in to do soil testing for the septic system, what we added to the plans, and a note showing on multiple sheets is that that has to be, area has to be inspected before the wetland replication area is begun by the project wetland scientist, and he has to give a restoration plan to the commission, because none of this work can take place before the passage of another winter and into spring. So this is several more months now that will go by, and we want the project wetland scientist, in this case Scott Jordan of Ecotech, to take a look at things then, see what the status of things is, where he thinks a new planting is worthwhile as opposed to areas that are already having some recovery. And so that, again, that issue was one question that had been raised by the abutters. Another one was in regard to, because this is a proposed car dealership, it's a land use of higher potential pollutant loads. I think there was a misconception in the question posed. You know, as a car dealership, you're going to have an area of a service area, floor drains, oil water separators. In this case, because it's a septic system and not a sewered area, you'll have a holding tank that this will have to be pumped out from. In addition, on the site, all the drainage, you know, in the front goes through catch basins and drain manholes, eventually through a CDS 2025 unit to be infiltrated. In the back, similarly, everything goes through catch basins, drain manholes, eventually through a CDS 2025 unit into infiltration. But I think it was a misconception. I think it would be impossible to actually, if there were a spill that went into a catch basin, to pretend that you could treat a used motor oil such that you could discharge it to infiltration. One of the values of the CDS unit is that you can capture some floatables, be they motor oil, transmission fluid, etc. There's no attempt, and no one could attempt, to treat spilled motor oil, spilled transmission fluid, etc., such that it could be discharged into an infiltration structure in the ground. The whole aim here is capture. No one can actually treat such that it could be safely infiltrated, you know, again, motor oil, etc. Just to go quickly on to another one, there was a question about the proposed retaining wall over where there's the 700 square foot wetland alteration, and the suggestion was, gee, there should be a buffer there. And I just want to point out that actually the proposed physical alteration, the footprint, is actually just over 400 square feet. We counted to a point another 6 feet out from the wall as alteration. Now, some of that is going to be altered in the course of construction, people getting in there, doing the footing, etc., of that wall. But it's not going to be permanently under any structure. Some of it is going to come back in the natural course of things. So our acknowledged alteration of 700 and some square feet is actually in excess of what the physical footprint of alteration is. And it's a 6 foot extra distance that we counted in that 700 square feet, which, again, for which we would do mitigation with a replication area at a ratio of 2 to 1. Just one more quick. There was a question in regard to the septic system location, and we had still shown that as actually a much larger system than is actually necessary to be built there. Again, we looked at just a simple, typical 350-foot trench system, and that actually provides adequate service for up to 36 employees in its facility. Now, there wouldn't actually be, very, very likely there would not be anywhere near 36 employees, but we redrew the septic system leaching area shown on there as that smaller system, and we looked at, the question was, geez, what's your separation from wall, what's your separation from infiltration area, and just the average 350-foot trench system It would be 46 feet from the wall and 136 feet from the infiltration system. So we revised the plans to show that, to show that the actual system to be installed for the facility would be much smaller. And lastly, there was a photograph included in the letter from the abutters consultant, and that was looking at an area right here, which is, I think you also have a letter now from Scott Jordan, the project wetland scientist from Ecotech. And it's kind of in line with his flag A23 that I've got the scale texting. And you can, if you're at A23, this is basically due west of you about 70 feet. And I included some pictures. You could see the abutter, Lamoli, and the abutter, I say the name right, Young, behind in that picture. And it's a small depression, about variously 15 by 25, 12 by 22, somewhere in that range. But it's actually on the other side of the intermittent stream. The wetland area that, these flags, A, 17 up here through A33, that's denoting the limit of. The intermittent stream running through them is to their, is to their west, but it's to the east of this little depression. This little depression is not fed by the stream, it's not fed by runoff from this site. It actually is fed probably primarily by runoff from this abutting property. So one of the things that I said, and I think Scott Jordan somewhat echoed, is that not only are we going to be fairly distant from this little depression, but the discharge and runoff from the work area doesn't even go to it. It's actually fed by runoff from the butter up here off of Route 9. So, and again, it's not on the map as even a potential vernal pool. But I think that's it for what was we covered in the revisions in the letter. I may have forgotten something, but I'll try to answer any questions. I think, again, I think we've answered the questions from staff and from the abutters consultant, but I will try and respond to anything extra that you may have.
Chris,
No questions this time.
Martha?
I wondered, James, if you could speak to, I'm looking at the edge where the residential
East side.
area is,
towards
on the east
Madison
side,
Place.
yeah. And I'm seeing berm along the side. Could you talk a little bit about what that berm looks like?
Well, I guess I should ask quickly as a clarifier, are you talking about the pavement berm? Are you talking about grading and how the grading
Yes,
works out?
both of them.
Both, okay.
I'd like to get a visual of what that
Okay.
side looks like.
Sure. Well, what the grades show here is that, again, this building's first floor would be 542. You've got 540 kind of radiating out this way from in front of it. You've got 538, again, sort of a radial line out further. So you're dropping down and spreading out, as it were. So the raindrop that falls right over here is heading out to that berm line, and it's going to go over to a catch basin here. The raindrop that falls 20 feet to the side of it is actually going to go straight out and to a catch basin over here. Because again, these are sort of radial lines out. What this is proposing to do is to capture, if I was going to draw it real quick, almost from the building corner out to a point somewhere over here to a catch basin there. This area here is going to go to that berm line, go to that catch basin. Half of this entrance drive is going to, it's going to shed to each side. This part of that sheds to that side is going to go to another catch basin. There are actually two of them here that are sort of at the low point on one side. Because this site right now is from 548 up at the road, drops down to 518 very quickly, and then it much more gradually rises up almost at that same 548. So 548 down to 518, back up to 548. And what we're proposing to do is to somewhat mirror that, but to soften it, is to have 548 goes down to, oops, get the right number here. Okay, 548 goes down to 535 and change, with some catch basins over here on the side, some catch basins in the middle, and catch basins over on the west side also. So down to those catch basins, again from this side, 542 now, so the top of the hill would be reduced. 542 down to that same sort of crease in the landscape. We essentially took where there's a sort of a topographic crease in the landscape that's over here at 520, and we've raised it up to be 535 and pulled it back from the road so that we had a reasonable driveway entrance. This right now is just so steep, you could not ask the car to drive this. So no matter what, you're gonna end up filling this to make a reasonable driveway entrance. And again, we're going down 548, 535, 35, back up to 542. And what's happening over off the pavement here is you've got kind of a mix of things. Right beside this driveway, you're dropping down. I'm trying to find a spot. There's a point where it becomes, there's actually sort of 2 points where it's almost even, where the grade, like naturally right now here is 530, it's about 536 naturally, and this is 536 hitting just off from that. So you have a very little grade difference in this spot. You have a very little grade difference in this spot. You go further down, and even though we're dropping down sort of a walkout back fashion, when you think of a walkout back house, this is first floor on an upper level with service down on a lower level. Despite that, these grades here are filled over the grades off to the side. So first you have some slopes, and then you have a wall to make that grade transition happen.
Are you building up around the edge of the pavement at all, or are you, or does it transition at the same level into?
A little bit, because, for instance, over here, the natural grade is, try to find the contour, the low five, oh, here it is, okay. So the natural grade here right now is about 524, but because we can't ask cars to come down this quickly or rise up that quickly, we have to go higher. This is gonna be 537, so this is a significant fill here, and we're just filling off to the side with a slope before hitting the property line. That's the South Meadow emergency drive, again with Madison Place on the other side. So we're filling all of this area because this just drops too quickly, and we have to soften it up, and to soften it up, we have to raise where the grade dropped almost immediately from 548 down to 518. We have to soften that from 548 to, this is 538 now here, and again to 35 at the low point. So there's some area to fill. There's areas where the grades are almost even, and again, area to fill to the southeast and south side.
So I guess I have two comments. One is that you want to be really careful with the grading, of course, so that the water stays on site and does get directed into those catch basins instead of spilling over the edge.
Yep.
And then the other is, it's nicely colored in green all around it. Does that mean that you're seeding those slopes?
Actually, I don't have the landscape plan right in front of me, but I believe that slope is actually a 2-to-1 slope that's going to be having North American Green SC 150BN erosion control mat put on it and seeded with slope mix.
Okay. As long as it's not.
It's
ripped out.
actually, because this particular spot is actually sort of out of sight, or at least somewhat out of sight. But you're still gonna have vegetation off. The actual pavement of the, color on here a little bit, the actual pavement of the emergency drive is here. And you get just a little bit off that and off the walk, and you've got some vegetation. But this particular face only faces the emergency drive, and again, after some intermittent vegetation, the access to the Madison Place project. So it wasn't a high priority for landscaping and for some aesthetics.
Okay, I'm set, thank you. I might have some comments on some of the species you suggested, but I'll do that another time.
Okay, fair enough.
Are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
I'm all set.
Andy,
Yeah, I'm all set at this point.
Leah? All set. Does anyone in the public have any questions?
I do. I'm Lori Odell, 17 Old Laxfield Road, South Meadow Condominiums.
You want to go to the mic, please?
You more than
Look in there.
No, I don't either.
What, it's not a coverage, it's only for TV.
So I want to preface this that I am not,
Well, you
A
switch to the
contractor.
microphone.
so where is the microphone? Is this it? Okay. I'm not a contractor. I'm not an engineer, but I'm a realist. Okay? The area you're talking about, Route 9, comes like this, down to South Street, and then down here into South Meadow Condominium, down here into a large wetland. Okay? The only green space I heard you talk about was due to the fire department. Nothing about green space at all surrounding your property, surrounding our property as a buffer. Right now, that downward slope has trees, has granite, and has wetlands. It has a natural balance of earth and a water table. Your softening is going to upset that water table. I live below. We have open space. You are putting a giant pavement. There'll be no place for the water to go but down into our community and into our wetlands. You are going to, in the winter, have salt from plowing a massive area of pavement. That salt is going to go into your drainage system. It's going to go into our wetlands. You are going to have lots of car traffic. There's going to be oil, there's going to be gas that when it rains is going to get into that soil. It's going to come down into the water table, get into the wetlands below, destroy the wetlands that are there after you've destroyed the wetlands that are in that property. And not only that, there's no buffer for trees, so there'll be noise pollution. We'll be like right on Route 9. There'll be lights like we're in an amusement park. So there'll be light pollution, and there'll be noise pollution. You have removed all buffers. I'm not seeing, I don't know where Old Laxfield is, but I'm not seeing that you are providing lots of green space as a buffer between us and your development. I think it's irresponsible. And when I look at the apartment complex that was built, in a similar manner, they did all sorts of digging to have proper water runoff. They did all sorts of planting to contain and make a nice green space. This provides none of that.
Do we have any other questions or comments?
Yes.
I'm in Jolly currently 31 Old Laxfield. And just to point out, I know you know it, but this is Old Laxfield Road. This is my home right here. Sketch, I know you mentioned at a previous meeting something about backyards and people seeing this from their backyards. This is my front yard and many other people's front yards. So when we drive into our home, when we step out of our home, we will no longer be seeing acres of woods as we have all these decades since South Meadow was built. But we will see parking lots, lights, cars, an entire plot of all of those trees destroyed. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your minds. I know you deal with wetlands issues, that's your only mandate, but I ask that you seriously consider everything that's been brought forward. And I also want to raise the concern that the applicants filed their latest revised plans after your deadline of December 1st. So I know our consultant, environmental consultant, did have a response to those, but he didn't have a chance to review them, in a timely manner under the deadline that you yourselves have imposed. So I would ask, I don't know if you've read the latest letter that he submitted yesterday or today, but I ask that you please read that and the concerns that he raised. And I too am, I know that Lori mentioned the issue of trees, but I am just kind of blown away that our town would allow something like this to happen. To obliterate acres of trees, there's no apparent requirement and there's no effort by these developers to provide any kind of buffer. They are destroying the aesthetics of our neighborhood. They're certainly doing a lot of environmental destruction. They're destroying our property values, and there seems to be no consideration of any way to at least reduce the impact on our neighborhoods or our neighborhood. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments on this hearing? Go ahead.
I have a question. I think I can ask from here.
Why don't you stand up, because there's no mics down in that area.
My name is Jim Coleman. I live at 87 Brookdale Circle in South Meadow. How do you plan to access this property to do this work?
Route 9,
Pardon me?
from Route 9,
From Route 9? Only from Route 9?
yes.
So the town is going to shut down Route 9 so you can build this, do this landfill and build this car dealership?
I'm not sure why you would envision that Route 9 would be shut down.
That's the only access to do this work. It's going to be a big problem.
I respectfully disagree.
That's my question.
Okay.
Oh, one more question. Has anybody on the board actually gone to South Meadow and looked up where these folks live?
We know
So you've
we're,
actually been there, you've actually looked at this.
we've grown up in town. We know the town very well.
Have you looked at that piece of land from standing on Old Blacksfield?
From where Lori lives?
That's really the issue.
I know, but again, you gotta understand, what's the job of the Conservation Commission? We have very limited scope, and it has to do with the wetlands and the wetland regs. And a lot of the questions you bring up, and I know they're important to you as abutters, I sympathize with you, but this may not be the appropriate board to bring those up with. You might wanna talk to zoning, or you wanna talk to planning board for those kind of issues, but,
Well, the
basically-
main issues too is, our wetlands are basically below that. So as long as you have all these rules and regulations to follow, that could absolutely ensure that nothing from that particular site. I mean, our wetlands is right across the
right,
street.
you're downstream of this project.
Yes.
Correct,
It's logical, it's gonna go down.
Yeah.
yeah.
And, well, currently, I heard that you're gonna be building up that site, but the site is pretty much at an angle, straight down
Yeah.
into our wetlands right
And again, a lot of the building up is for, constructability of the site and the parking, and looking at it from a water standpoint, there are catch basins throughout that entire lot. And what's important is to follow the catch basins, where the water goes in those catch basins, and, you have to assure yourself that that water is being captured and routed, to treatment units, and also to where they're being discharged, to either recharge the ground or surface water discharge. And that's really where our focus lies. But I understand that it's very upsetting to lose that kind of vegetation and acreage that you've had all those years. Unfortunately,
now. Really, so much of it that's being taken away from our community.
I
In the
know.
last handful of years. And actually, the Centec buildings
Mm-hmm.
have disturbed some old farmland. I'll just call it old farmland that has reverted back to a natural kind of situation that inadvertently or indirectly, because of the animal population, have actually impacted some of our wetlands too.
All right.
It's
Yes.
very distant.
Any of you be able to comment on the record tonight as to whether you would agree this is a failure of, however this happened in our town, that this property was zoned such that.
Can you stand up? I can't, I'm having trouble even hearing you from here, and I know the mics aren't gonna pick you
I
up.
see this as a failure of our town, that this property could have been zoned in such a way that a development like this could be built so close to a quiet residential community that was not built on Route 9, it was built off of Route 9. And that a developer could come in this close to our property and put a car dealership. I mean, would you agree that is a failure of the zoning, or whoever zoned this property in that way, that this could happen? Is that not?
I can't comment because I'm not a zoning person, but I mean, there is gonna be a line somewhere, no matter where you do it. There's gonna be lines where commercial abuts residential and,
But
you
if
know,
look at
and
the
that line's
surrounding
gonna,
area, it makes no sense.
it's gonna
It
be
does not
someplace.
fit into the area
Yeah.
whatsoever. I know that's not your purview, but, and this is a major
Yeah.
failure. It
No,
does
I-
not fit into the area and it will destroy our neighborhood.
And it'll destroy the wetlands
Yes.
below.
Absolutely.
I don't care how many catch basins you have, there's gonna be runoff, and the wetlands below us will die.
And I know you said at the previous meeting that, or someone said, the wetlands on our property would not be affected. I don't know how you can possibly say that.
yeah, well, the standards they're following are the standards we're imposing on every development in town. So there's nothing that they're not doing that other people have done. They are meeting the requirements that have been put out there by the regulations, so I don't know what else to say other than that. What else can you ask them to do in terms of the, you could go up to the microphone, because we're not gonna capture this on the audio if you're not.
Hi, Rosemary Osceola.
What, the microphone's behind you.
Rosemary Osceola, 10 Brookdale Circle. I just have a quick photo that I took last Friday after all the rain that we had, and I'll let you see it. That's from Madison Place, with all the work that they did, and we're still getting flooded there. So the best way plans of me and the was there. So I just wanted to just let you see that. Okay, that's when it rains. Thank you.
Okay, James, when did these revised drawings come in?
They came in December, was it the morning of the 13th, I believe?
Okay, so they did miss the deadline, did they,
I believe that what was quoted is a deadline for a new filing, not
Okay.
for the submission of revised plans.
all right.
Yeah, we've not really, I mean, typically we want them at least a week before to review them, but we
Yeah.
don't have a deadline for updated plans. That's just for new filings.
Yeah,
We were timely in the accepted schedule for a set of revisions.
okay.
Can I say that did not give, I mean, that gives them all the power, gives them all the time. It doesn't give our consultant time to thoroughly review them and, or time for you to consider what he said. And the last time, he wasn't given an opportunity to speak.
Right,
Many people weren't given an opportunity to speak, so I don't think that's how it's all supposed to work.
I-
That they get all the time to submit their plans, and then our team gets a few
Right.
days or a week. And we
Mr.
don't have
Chairman,
a
I
chance
I
to
just
review
want to
it.
note, when I sent out the PDF to the town, I actually sent it to their consultant directly.
okay, you did,
So it's-
okay,
It
that
wasn't
one,
even a matter of needing an extra pass-through of plans or documents. I sent it to him directly, Mr. Parker.
all right, did you hear that? So your consultant got those revisions directly from
But also
James.
on the 13th? I mean,
Yes, at the same time.
Yeah, it was the same day, 'cause, yeah.
Okay, that's also, that's assuming that he has the time in a week to,
Well-
properly respond when they have him up to change things. But that doesn't make any sense.
Mayor, my name is John Finn. I live at 55 Brookdale. I'm chairman of the board.
Can you just zoom with the microphone?
Okay.
Just take a look.
I did get them, I don't know if I got them directly from Mr. Tetrault. I got them from our engineer who got them that day, and I believe there was some that came in on the 13th, and then there was a letter that came on the 15th. And the first thing that our engineer says, I really don't have enough time to review all these and get a letter in. And eventually, I did send in a request for a continuance, but was informed by Mr. Truman that a butter, only the petitioner can request a continuance. So our engineer slapped something together yesterday, and I had it emailed in today. But we really didn't think we had, we read the requirements as documents having to be submitted by the petitioner by the 1st of the month. That's how we read it, so. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Andy, I mean, James, rather. How significant were those changes?
Quite honestly, they weren't very significant.
Were those the changes you were talking about in your
Exactly.
summary to begin with tonight?
The letter that I sent in, the cover letter,
Yeah,
was essentially identifying, was a direct response
yeah,
to the abutters consultant letter. And again, there were, maybe it was 6 bullet points, except for adding the note on a couple different sheets, which called for the project's wetland scientists to view the area that was altered for testing and come up with a restoration plan.
yeah.
The change to the exact location limits of the septic system was the only other change to the plan.
Right.
Again,
And the septic system was already shown on the earlier versions.
it was already shown, and we had shown, because the very first iteration of this process, when this project, excuse me, when it was ever considered, was as possibly a effective redo of the previously approved Adams Farm 2
Yep,
condominium project. And we looked at, okay, what septic system would satisfy that? And we had simply shown that same 5,000 or 6,000 gallon septic system area on that plan. And we knew it was way, way oversized for what would be involved in a car dealership. And in response to the abutters consultant's comment, we simply said, okay, what is a reasonable size? And showed a 350-foot trench system, and again, to show that you would be 46 feet off the wall, 136 feet from that infiltration area. But that change in the plan and that the notation about the project wetland scientist submitting a restoration plan upon viewing things again in spring were the only changes to the plan.
okay. No,
That's
all I
why
wanted
if you
to-
look at the cover sheet, there are multiple sheets that say, you know, L1, L2 unchanged, P1, P4 unchanged.
All right, no, that's good enough. Ken?
Perhaps maybe we could keep it open, letting the planning board take a look at it, and if they have any changes.
Want to do that?
Yeah, because they haven't submitted with planning board, I asked today, so,
Correct.
I mean, and typically, obviously, historically,
And
planning
then
board
that-
waits for
that'll
us.
give-
And that will, then
Give
they,
them a chance.
can, even though it appears the changes are very, very minor since our last meeting, and are you amenable to keeping this going for,
Because we're looking to go in and start doing we're gonna do the walls and start working on some other stuff before we go to the planning board.
Yeah, we
No, I would-
really wanted to start doing some of the initial work before
How can you do that?
getting done all of the.
How can you do that before the planning board has a chance to look at your plans?
Well, we're not building the building yet, or doing the park.
But you can't do any site clearing either.
Yeah,
but you're moving the
As
wall.
long as we have a building permit, we can go in there and clear.
Only up to 10,000 square feet.
I don't know, when I spoke with the building inspector, so as long as we had a building
I
permit.
think we should keep it.
But she only should build, well, but the planning board won't sign off on the building permit if you don't have planning board permit approval.
Even just for walls,
They might not.
that's what I was told.
I don't know, yeah, I would,
I
it's
could-
unusual,
I
it's unusual to start doing site work without planning board approval.
Just my opinion is, I think we should at least give the butters a chance to look at this and then come back
They have
next
any-
month. It's a month.
yeah, why don't we do it? Why don't we
Okay.
push it out? That way, are you scheduled to go into planning board? Not at all? All right, well, get that resolved. That question with planning board, are they gonna let you go ahead and do the work with only a Concom?
Yeah, we're not doing the building, obviously.
No, I know, you're not gonna do it in the building,
Right.
but I mean, just what you wanna do.
Grading-wise.
They might, like Andy's saying, they're gonna sign off on any building permit or to open up that site.
I mean, typically, most building permits have Concom and Planning Board sign off on them as part of the process, so.
They do.
Yes, so I would check on that.
It would be a
the next
first in
30 days.
town.
And
They
then,
won't sign off.
okay.
That's a good question, I'm sorry. Were you able to read the letter? Because our consultant that letter was submitted this morning. Have you read it yet? He did do a quick response, like John said.
It goes to our agents.
It goes to the agents, then we uploaded it to Google Drive, but
Okay, but you haven't read it yet.
I haven't seen it.
I'm skimming it now, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah.
And then you have a question for the developers. One question that I haven't seen answered anywhere is, who is this actual, it's my understanding you're the land developers, but you, I'm sorry, I might know your name, but I'm not positive. It's my understanding you're a home builder.
Can you stand up again, because we're gonna lose, this is gonna be a big
Okay.
gap in the tape.
It's my understanding you're normally a home builder. This isn't your car dealership. So who is the car dealership that is going to potentially be our neighbor? We don't even know that yet.
Yeah, it's still we're still negotiating with a couple dealerships right now.
Okay, so you don't even know for sure?
No.
What kind of dealership?
No.
Who the owner is going to be or anything? So you are developing this property to then put it out there to sell to a dealership?
Lease, but yes,
So you would still own the land?
That's correct.
And they would lease it from you?
that's correct.
Okay. And are you interested in trying to negotiate if this is to go forward through the rest of the town process? Obviously, we would prefer to see it not go forward at all, given concerns we have raised and the impact this is going to have on this land and our neighborhood. But do you have any interest in talking to the neighbors and
Yeah,
trying to be good neighbors and try to negotiate some concessions if this is to go forward? I'm sure you can understand that this is completely, will have a huge impact on our neighborhood. And if you are a home builder normally, could you imagine building homes across? I mean, would you want to put this in across from a development where you've built?
Haven't you already met
nice
with a
homes?
group representing the abutters?
Before most of us knew about it.
Yeah.
He met with a few members, he met with a few members of our board, that's my understanding, most of us didn't know about it at that time.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that question out there on the
Well-
public record, and know.
I'll tell you what, that's the purpose of these meetings, that you come to the public meetings to have comments and all, and if you want to have sidebar discussions with the developer outside, and the next meeting, things get revised, that's okay, but really, we only have to deal with what's in front of us, and we got a lot on the agenda tonight, so we really have to go out.
I'll be quick. That's fine, okay? Gloria Dell, 17 Old Laxfield. You had asked
Yeah.
quite a while ago, well, what else would you want, right? A green space buffer between this car dealership and Old Laxfield Road. What you have now, the only buffer zone is a septic system. That if it goes awry, is gonna be opened up, right? It's gonna have to be serviced. We want green space, like the apartment complex did.
That-
They put up trees, they had green space, so we weren't looking right at them. And what you have is you have a septic system.
Yeah.
Move the septic system somewhere else and give us some green space.
Yeah, you bring that up with the planning board, that's,
No, but I mean,
But
you
that-
asked.
that's
You
where-
we're not
asked the
green
question.
space, we're not green space people.
That's
Okay.
where the planning board hearing,
Yeah.
That's being a responsible neighbor.
Yeah,
That's
well,
where-
bring it up to the planning board, because that's where this ultimately is gonna have to go through. Okay,
And then just
Yeah.
one other thing, Mr. Chairman, so if you do have any sidebar conversations, just understand if it's not on the plan, it's not enforceable by the town. So we kind of, he promised me to do this, so we just like to get that on the record.
wait, we've got, yeah,
You would ask for continuance to your next meeting?
yes, we will continue this until our next meeting, which is January 17, 2023. Okay, we'll see you guys then. Thanks.
Good holiday.
You too.
Thanks.
I think so, you can go in.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep.
Can you guys clarify a statement that the gentleman made, that they're going to start building the wall?
He's not, because we did, he's not.
He can't now, because we haven't issued anything tonight.
Yeah.
He's,
That's what I.
we're basically the same spot we were last month, we're going on another month, so.
No, I just wanted to clarify that they can't do anything until
Can't.
it's written out.
Typically, there's a couple of sign-offs within by the different departments, and that's what Andy was saying was.
The last time they spoke, they're going to be building a piece of wall.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
And I don't know how you assess that that's, I mean, I know I've seen a lot of walls like that along with my car dealerships, but how safe is that with all of this soil behind it?
Well, that's where it has to be approved by the town.
So
to-
that's the
that'll
question
need
that we
approval.
should ask.
That would need approval. Yep.
Planning board.
The plan.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Walls. Well, I know that.
It's a process.
Thank you for
Yep,
clarifying that.
thanks. Martha, are you gonna be able to read the notice on this one?
I am, I'm here, I've got it, it's, no, it's, hasn't, where'd it go? Here it is. Okay, we have a new public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of general laws, chapter 131, section 40, that Kelly Sullivan and Dylan Woodring, 2 Pheasant Hill Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass., have filed a notice of intent for a proposed addition with associated site work and drainage at 2 Pheasant Hill Drive. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, December 20th, at the Shrewsbury Council on Aging.
Thank you. For the record, John Grenier.
Do you have your green card? Or I forget.
Good job.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, he's trying to keep me honest. Again, John Grenier, Jan Grenier Associates. The proposal that we have before you is for a small addition to a single-family home on Pheasant Hill Drive. From what I understand from the owners is the purpose of this addition is to provide a bedroom and a small bath so that a elderly family member can move in with them. So what they are proposing to do is do an 18 by 28 addition off to the north side of the house. It's a moderately sized colonial style house. So it will have same roof lines, a gable end on that, so there'll be gutters on both the front and back side of the house where the eaves are. The grade really, there's not going to be much of any grade changing at all. For the addition, it's a flat yard. There is kind of a historic kind of old stone wall that runs parallel along kind of where the edge of clearing that was done when the original house was built. So what we're proposing is just beyond that little old stone wall is to have erosion control along the sideline adjacent to where the wetlands are, which is just off the property to the northwest. And also, one of the comments we received from the town engineer was to also wrap that erosion barrier across the frontage. Because as you know, a lot of times when contractors come in, they're coming in and out, pulling in, they're tearing up the grass, making it muddy, and then, you know, that gets tracked out into the road. So that'll act as a good physical barrier to make sure that things aren't getting tracked out onto the road back and forth. Also, what we're doing, we're capturing the roof runoff from the gutters, and that will be recharged into the ground. There's a small area right in the front that we chose. One question from the town engineer was to just do some confirmatory testing in there just to make sure that the soils are suitable right there, but where it's an addition and it's right next to where the where the development is. And there's a pool in the backyard, there's limited space to recharge, so we will double check that at the time of construction, and if there's anything we can do, if there's an issue with groundwater or the type of material, we can make modifications, so we're fine with doing that, it's not an issue. And the other thing that we did add to the plans was, it was requested that we add what size pipe that would be capturing the roof runoff and bring it to the recharge, so that's gonna be a 4-inch PVC pipe that would be capturing from the downspouts out to that recharge area. That's really the long and short of it. The closest point at that back corner, and again, this is within their existing yard area, kind of adjacent to the pool, we're 22 feet from about where wetland flag A5 is, which is just off the property. But again, just a small addition just to accommodate an elderly family member so that they can move in and help take care of parents. So I do have those updates that I did just mention. I do have updated plans.
Okay.
So I bring copies of that. Okay, and so I did bring copies of that. We did receive an email, we checked today, and
I just checked now, it's still not on there.
they still haven't, we haven't been issued a DEP file number yet. I don't see any issues with it, it's pretty straightforward, but if it needs to be continued, we're, I guess, fine with that. They're trying to, again, they're trying to get this in the ground and done so that they can move their family member in, so we're trying to keep it as streamlined as we possibly can. With that, if there's any questions, I'd like to address.
Chris?
No, no questions.
Martha?
I'm set.
Kent?
You can't make it any smaller?
Well, it's
So you're
a bedroom and
encroaching,
bathroom.
you're encroaching on the 30-foot buffer. Just asking.
They had the full architectural plans done, and it's just for 1 bedroom and a bath, and, you know, I mean, you could always make everything smaller, but they're trying to give the family members some adequate bedroom space and a small bathroom, so.
How about some of the bigger boulders out there,
So
sir?
there's a wall.
Well, there's a wall here, that's only 5 feet off, that was gonna be my question. John, that you said has some history to it, that stone wall?
Yeah.
Parallels it, it's only gonna be 5 feet off the foundation right now, and by the time you go in, is this gonna be a full foundation? I take it is, the addition, do you know? Versus a frost wall?
I have, hang on, I have the architectural plans on my phone. Yeah, oh, wait a minute. No, it's only gonna be a.
Frost wall?
It's only gonna be a frost wall.
All right, so they might be able to get that in
It's
without,
gonna be, that's why I pushed the erosion control a little further out,
right,
so that, they'd have a little bit more room to, you know, get a machine around and excavate for the foundation.
right, because that wall could, as, you know, be destroyed during the construction too, with it only 5 feet off the foundation.
What we could do, is when if they're probably gonna, you know, and it's not like a formal, nice wall, it's kind of just field stones.
Is it a rubble wall, just a rubble wall? Like
Yeah, it's field stones, but it's not a formal wall, it's just
Right.
kind of a rubble wall. What they could do is, at the limit of the erosion control,
Right.
take those stones and put it within the erosion control, so then you have a physical wall there. And they
It has a
can-
barrier to
And a
the well.
barrier, that's what I mean, so they
Yeah.
can neaten it up a
Yeah.
little bit and make it like a physical
Yeah.
barrier.
And are these stones significant enough so that you're not just gonna be hefting them out the way the next owner and the wetlands gonna be filled?
There's pictures in here, too.
If, maybe to mix in a few pretty big ones, where it meets that 22-foot offset, so that nobody's gonna be,
This is, that's, so you see the wall That's
Yeah,
the
those aren't that big.
It's not, they're not huge.
They're not
but-
that big. Those are all
They-
pickers.
Yeah, so that,
Yeah.
they could tell them to make something more of a formal vertical wall and try to bring some other rocks in. Those aren't huge. So then we
But,
can,
but then again, you know what Ken's saying, it's not meeting the 22 feet, so we don't want to get into that
right,
point
right, so,
where we're going to then start encroaching into the wetland over time.
so if you'd prefer to either move that, and I'm sure they'll run into some stones as they're digging for the foundation, to do a more of a formal wall, or if you want a split rail fence in addition to that, I'll do whatever you want.
I would say go with some 3-footers closer to that wetland area, you know, bring them in a bit from the wetland resource area, and intermix it with rocks, you know.
Okay, and I know the contractor very well.
Yep.
Really nice guy, very accommodating, and I'll let him know to make
Yeah,
sure that.
and do that wherever the building's not meeting that 30-foot
Okay.
offset, you know?
So if we went from, in the proximity, well, they have the pool area and they have the fence there.
Yep,
Yeah, just inside, if you look in the backyard.
yep, I see it.
So they have the fence around the pool. If beyond that, again, say in the area, say from wetland flag A6 through A3 along that side, to make it.
Yeah, up in that area
up and
there.
down. So basically from the front to like that, where the back corner by A6.
And again, it doesn't have to be hugging that wetland line, these rocks, just to keep them from encroaching into it. It can be,
No, I would
you
do
know.
it right along the existing tree line.
Yeah,
With
yeah,
the erosion
yeah,
control.
exactly.
So we're gonna have
Okay.
even more of a buffer.
And that would be okay. Would that work, Ken? Andy, anything?
I think the only other comment I had, we want the DP data file sheets for that.
Okay.
And when you're
Yeah, one of the wetland guys, I mean, they hate.
supposed to do them, so.
Yeah, everybody hates doing them, but I'll twist his arm and help to get them.
sheets?
Yeah, the field data sheets, it's supposed to fill in how they delineate the wetlands,
Oh,
otherwise we don't know how they did it.
I got you.
Yeah, 'cause we don't ground verify, usually it's gonna be soil, it could be
Yeah.
species,
Yeah.
typically most people submit them. It's a requirement.
You do have them? Yeah.
Yeah, no, he went, this was flagged by Matt Morrow. It was,
Okay.
they were field located by Jarvis Land Survey. And, he has all his notes, he just has to, a lot of wetland guys, they don't like the paperwork.
All right,
I shouldn't generalize that, but I will.
all right. Oh, yeah, you have anything?
No, not beyond
You're
the
all set?
foundation.
Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments tonight? All right, there is no file number, so our, precedent has been to just wait till we get it.
That's fine. And I-
Otherwise, our clock starts as soon as we close the hearing. We don't-
And the homeowners know, you sent an email out. That was the nicest, you're not gonna get a permit tonight, I've seen in a while.
Oh, good.
And that way you get a chance to throw the rocks on and show us the next meeting.
I'll get it on the plans
Yeah.
and it's formalized.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of general laws, chapter 131, section 40, that Nicholas Souter, 36 Old Brook Road.
Wait, whoa, okay, this one, this one got with,
asked for
actually
continuance.
postponed, correct?
Yes.
They asked for a postponement.
Okay, so we will not open the next hearing, which, as Martha was saying, it's a notice of intent filed by Nicholas Sauter, 36 Old Brook Road, Shrewsbury, for the construction of retaining wall to stabilize and level the backyard lawn at 36 Old Brook Road. The applicant has asked us to postpone opening this hearing until our next meeting. And go ahead, Martha, now to Park Street Place.
All right. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of general laws, chapter 131, section 40, that Robin Alquist, 79 Park Street Place, Shrewsbury, has filed a notice of intent for the reconstruction of an existing storage shed attached to the existing garage at 7 to 9 Park Street Place, Shrewsbury. Public hearing will be held on date of notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, December 20th, at the Shrewsbury Council on Aging.
Good evening, Kate O'Donnell from Ecotech. I'm representing the applicant, Rob Alk. I was on the site in October of this year. I delineated the boundary of BBW off-site to the west, shown in green on the plan, with flags A1 to A13. The property is an existing half-acre site and contains a single-family house, paved driveways, lawn, landscaped areas, and a detached two-car garage with an attached storage area. The proposed work is to replace that storage area attached to the garage with a new concrete slab foundation. The new shed is proposed within the footprint of the existing shed, so no additional impervious area and no new structures are proposed, and all the work is within existing developed areas. And the shed is proposed to be approximately 45 feet from the wetland at its closest point. DP also made a comment about the presence of BLSF. There is a mapped 100-year floodplain associated with that intermittent stream, but it does appear to be located outside. The project area appears to be located outside, and additionally there's no grading, no new impervious surfaces or structures, so the flood storage capacity of the site will not be altered as a result of the project. And lastly, we're showing a straw wattle erosion control barrier at the limit of work. And I can answer any questions you guys have.
Chris,
No. Questions?
you all set?
Yes.
Martha?
You have a stockpile area shown. What will you be stockpiling?
Just minor grading, just to put in the foundation.
Okay. All
You all
set.
set? Ken?
All set.
Andy?
No, I had a couple of minor comments, but nothing been addressed, so. The other thing is obviously want to make sure that spoils are taken off site.
Okay.
Top.
Alea?
Awesome.
All set? No file number 2 also, huh?
We did get one, actually.
Oh, you did?
They sent
Yeah.
it to me yesterday.
Thank you.
Beautiful. What's the number?
285
Yep.
1952. And like I said, they made a comment about BLSF, but there's no changes in grade or structures proposed.
All right. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I don't see any. We'll close it.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Cherry Street.
Good?
Yeah, we're gonna,
Okay.
we're gonna,
I'm gonna check everything
yeah,
now.
no.
I don't think there's any.
This is the one we just did.
No, it's one
compliance one last week.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, it's on there.
It's one of the other ones for solar
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
panels on it, so we just want to trim some of the top of the trees. It seemed pretty benign, but I just didn't want to, we still had the open order condition, so I didn't held for another month.
Okay, we ready?
Yep, we're all set.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Fuson Lee, 54 Cherry Street, Shrewsbury, Mass., has filed a request for determination of applicability for the removal of trees at 54 Cherry Street, Shrewsbury. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, December 20th, 2022, in the Shrewsbury Council on Aging.
Yes, I am Fuson Lee at 54 Cherry, and I would like to install some solar panels in the back roof of my house. And in doing so, there are several trees that would provide a shading for the solar panels. So I'm asking for approval to not remove completely, but trim the trees to the roof line so that when the sun shines, it would prevent shading on the rear roof. and I have some pictures I can provide to show.
So this is not a total tree removal, it's just the trimming of the tree?
Yes, it's the
to
trimming of
take
the
some of
tree.
the branches off?
Yeah, so here's the two trees, and you can see on the roof, it provides shading. When there's leaves, obviously it will be much greater. So it's these trees in the back, which fall in the wetland area,
Yeah.
which is like, I think it's probably at least 60 feet from the wetland zone. So here it is here.
Altogether, are there only 3 trees?
Three trees, yes.
3 of them?
Yes, one of which actually I can probably do because it's within my property and it's not in the wetland zone, but which is this one right here.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, this is one within that line, right? And the other 2 trees right behind here, the house, this is the house here, which are these 2 trees. So my plan is to cut it to that level so that the branches up top does not create shading on the rear roof.
So you leave the
I would leave the
bulk of the tree?
Yes, I would leave
Lower
the bulk.
part?
Yeah. In fact, actually, one of the trees I'm actually a little concerned about, actually, here's a picture of the tree. So I would cut it probably like right here somewhere. And one of the trees I'm kind of concerned about because it's actually might even already be on its way out. And so the potential of if we have a large storm, it would fall off and hit back my house. There's a high potential. Really concerned about that.
What is that tree, Martha? Can't you tell?
It looks like it's a maple, but it also looks like it's been regrowing, healing
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah. It's a tree. Yeah, it's hard, you can't really see very well, but it's this tree here.
Yeah.
So all 3 of these trees are actually in the wetland area,
Yeah,
right?
so if you look at here, here's
It's the line right there.
these 2 here.
Oh, this one of them's
So 2
out.
of them are inside, one
One
is
is
out,
out.
but in the buffer zone.
It's in the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah, I can't now.
What do you think, Martha? You're the tree person.
I think trimming them is much more agreeable than asking to take them down completely. And I appreciate that you value them.
I do value this provides beauty to the backyard,
Mhm.
for sure.
Mhm. And some shade for the
And for shade
for the family. Yeah,
on the back patio.
yeah.
Yeah, so in other words, yeah, I would probably trim it so that all these branches would not appear on the rear roof.
How would you trim them? Would you hire somebody to climb them, or
Yeah, it
would
would
you
be-
need a crane or something?
It would be somebody, I already contacted somebody, and he said it would be a manual cut, somebody climbing up there.
Okay.
It wouldn't be like a machine, and I wouldn't want the back lawn to be destroyed.
Mhm.
So yeah, it would be a manual, somebody climbing up there.
Okay, I'm all set.
You also? Chris, you have anything?
Yeah, I was gonna ask how high you're trimming them, because
So.
this is probably a picture that was recently taken, right? So
Yeah.
the sun is lower, right?
This is in the morning, so
Okay.
I would say, where this little, I don't know, notch here, I would cut it right there.
Okay.
I would say it's probably in the 60%. So if this is half, I would say this is probably about 60%. Yeah, so a lot of this would go, but still leave some of the branches. And I asked the tree contractor to make it so that the tree looks presentable as well, not just like a chop completely. Make it look like it's still gonna live.
I agree with Martha. I think it's better that you're trying to at least save, some of the tree, so I'm all set.
Okay. Ken?
I'm good.
Andy?
Yeah, I guess the only question is, do we want to define how much is getting cut off, or we just want to? It's the only thing I'm trying to figure out. It's one of those hard things to
I mean, we
Because usually
normally
when
would
they cut
allow
them down,
them
it's
to leave
pretty
a
easy.
large stump, right?
So we said to the roof line, I think was,
That was my delineation.
so no lower than the roof line, and we'll.
Little underneath the roof line.
Let's
so
say that.
I,
Okay.
So let's give him like 5 feet below the roof line.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, that's more than enough.
All right.
Okay.
This will work.
Because it's going to start to grow back and you'll
Right.
get leaves again.
Yeah, so when it does happen, can I, at that point, keep trimming to that level and not come back in and ask
Yes,
permission to do that?
yeah, you, once you leave us, you'll be all set.
Okay.
That'd be-
Going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for, okay.
But you might wanna add 5 feet below the roof line.
Yeah, I'll do
In a
5 feet.
fashion that maintains the health of the tree.
Yeah.
You know, so that the guy just doesn't
Yeah, it just doesn't lop the top off.
blindly lop it and,
Would you like to make a motion?
yeah,
All right,
yeah, can you
yeah.
make a motion? Yeah.
Make a motion, we issue negative determination, trimming of trees at 54 Cherry Street, no lower than 5 feet below the roof line on the, on 3 trees shown on.
Right, in a fashion to maintain the health of the tree. Yeah.
Health and,
Okay.
health and presentation is what I got. So, yeah, all right.
Yeah, all right,
I think I
so
got
we
a
got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, there isn't any, all in
Who
favor?
seconded it, sorry?
Chris, second.
Chris, okay.
I second, yes.
All right, thank you.
No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
That's good.
Good, you're all set.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming in with this, too.
Yes.
Okay.
So
all right.
withdrawn means it's
I'll just-
completely withdrawn, not coming back?
Yeah, why don't I just make an announcement here on the other one? On our agenda, we had a new public hearing, and it was regarding the request for determination filed by Hartford Realty Trust of Shrewsbury / Roderick St. Pierre Trust, 291 Grafton Street, for the installation of a new sewer and associated site work at Hartford Turnpike, Route 20, from Clue Street to Stony Hill Road. The applicant has withdrawn that application from our process. Okay, Martha, the last one is it.
We have a new public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Kelly Realejo, trustee, Route 20 nominee trust, Shrewsbury, 55 Cambridge Parkway, Suite 200, Cambridge, Mass. 02142, has filed for an amended order of conditions for the modification to portions of the existing drainage system at 180, 200, and 228 Hartford Turnpike, Shrewsbury. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, December 20th, 2022, in the Shrewsbury Council on Aging.
Couple of housekeeping items is the certified slips, and there's also a check in here.
Hold on, it's full of cash.
My name is Roy Smith. I work for RGO Design Associates. We are civil engineers for the project. The reason why I'm in front of the board is for 2 purposes. One is to reclassify 2 of the 6 basins as wet basins. They were originally designed as infiltration basins. However, they are not functioning as designed, originally designed, and they're holding water, so we're going to reclassify them as wet basins in accordance with DEP stormwater management policy. We've done the drainage analysis and resubmitted that as part of this approval process, and we're also submitted in front of the planning board for the basin modification classification. The 3 standards that really stand out when doing a basin design and modification. The 6, let me take a step back for a sec. There's 6 basins on site, 2 of which are the subject of discussions for modification to wet basins. There's 2 basins along the frontage of Route 20. This is the Market Basket Building, and then there's the residential development to the east and to the south of the development. There's 2 commercial basins, which are the subject of the modifications to wet basins, and then there's 2 other basins that are going to remain as infiltration basins. All the basins have been built and have been functioning on site to date, and like I said, the basins 4 and 5 is behind the Market Basket and to the side of the Market Basket building. If you've been out to the project site, you'll probably see them. The basin number 5 is pretty wet. I think I'm gonna name the basin after myself, but it's holding water. It held water all throughout the summer season, which was a significant drought. Hence the reason why we're gonna reclassify them as wet basins. It just makes natural sense. And it actually gives a little bit of diversity to the basin designs. The front 2 basins basically are handling the Route 20 runoff. And that's subject to a different order of conditions, even though we granted the state easements in order to construct those basins. The 2 commercial basins basically handle the commercial portion of the property. And then these 2 other basins are infiltration basins, that those are basically residential basins for the residential portions of the development program. The 2 basins that you see here, we've looked at basically the 3 stormwater management policies that you look at when you classify a wet basin. Is you gotta maintain peak flows, pre and post development conditions. So the post-development peak flows are underneath the pre-development peak flows. So when we're classifying, we reran the analysis, and we didn't actually have to make any modifications to the outlet control structure or elevations to basin number 4. Same thing with basin number 5. We didn't have to change any grading or elevations. What we do have to do is change the outlet structures and modify the low flow orifices in those outlet control structures. I don't know if all the board members were here during the original design, but there's 3 outlet control structures on basin number 5, not just one big one. So we did that on purpose, and it allowed us the flexibility to model our stormwater management and get our water quality volume and our recharge volume maintained in the other 2 basins, residential basins overall. So 3 standards are the peak flows, pre and post, the water quality volume, for classification of wet basins. And when we modify these outlet structures on basin 5, we're raising the low flow orifice by about a foot in order to increase the water quality volume below the low flow orifice. And that's required based on a wet basin design criteria based on DEP. They make you increase the water quality volume versus an infiltration basin. Hence the reason why I have to modify the 3 outlet control structures in that basin. The other portion of the request beyond the basin modification and classification is asking for an extension to the order of conditions. And the reason for the extension is there's an approved commercial development project that we have not built. We haven't cleared and grubbed it or anything. We haven't touched it from its existing condition. The owner is currently marketing that site and has some interest in it, but he hasn't formalized any development program. Obviously, if the development program changes, if a new tenant comes in and the development program changes, we'll have to be back in front of this board and as well as the planning board with that modification. But the reason for the extension request is associated with that future commercial development on parcel. We're requesting a 3-year extension to the existing order of conditions. And that's basically it. I have some handouts which basically show the overall site and then the 2 basins in question, and then some photos of the existing basin 4 and 5. It's important to note that when we're classifying them as wet basins, it actually increases the habitat ability within the basin itself. I've been out to the site, and I know Andy has been out to the site as well. I've seen actually crayfish in basin number 5, a pretty large crayfish, and I've seen frogs, and I've seen ducks in basin 4. So it's a little bit different than a dry basin or an infiltration basin. It provides additional habitat, being a wet basin. So
why did they
I have.
I mean, isn't that
I have theories on it.
Sand and gravel spot?
It was, and I have my theories on it, but I guess bottom line is it's holding water. I don't know really the reason why, to pinpoint it directly, why it didn't function as an infiltration basin. It could be we used them as temporary sedimentation basins. They did cull them out at the end of construction, but
They could have got blinded.
maybe it got clogged and silt got in there. You know, maybe we didn't do enough test pits. It's a pretty large basin. It's deep, based on DEP's policy, it's like one test pit per 5,000 square feet, which we met. Maybe we should have done a little bit more test pits in the basin itself, you know.
It's not influenced by groundwater
No,
by any means,
no.
because.
No, because the groundwater,
Just
you know,
goes-
you have the flared end sections coming from the outlet
Right.
structures, those are dry, so. I wish I could have an answer for you, but I
Yeah.
don't,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Chris, do you have any
I'm all set.
comments? Martha?
Ducks, huh?
Yeah, there's some, I tried to get some pictures of them.
How deep is the water?
The water is about 2 feet deep now. We'll be increasing that to about 3 feet. And that's what they refer to as a wet basin, as the permanent pool of the wet basin.
But don't you have vegetation now to deal with, now that it's gonna be wet year-round?
Yeah, and you'll see in the photos, if you look at the photos, there's starting to already grow some vegetation around the perimeter
Yeah.
of where it
So-
turns wet to dry.
So how does that affect a maintenance plan on these?
It really doesn't, because what we could do, and what they did this fall, right before the winter, is they cut the grasses because you don't want trees growing up in the basin slope. So there's definitely no trees, and that's part of the maintenance program, the ongoing maintenance program. So we have a long-term pollution prevention plan as part of our stormwater management and our stormwater policy application. So that's part of the program. Is basically they're gonna, once a year, they're gonna, you know, weed whack the sides of the basin and make sure there's no trees growing up, because it doesn't want to compromise the basin slope and its integrity.
Well, what about looking at it as a habitat feature and considering shrubs along the side?
I think there's already shrubs growing along the
You've
perimeter
got,
of the
I
basin.
see cattails.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
I don't know what that, you
yeah, I
know,
don't think we want shrubs, because they will get inundated with water during a stormwater event, you know, so,
but there are shrubs that do that naturally. I'm just interested in, I mean, it's totally different from what you envisioned. It is creating an additional wildlife habitat, and you know, if you've got crayfish and you're attracting ducks into it, why, I don't know how this just jams up right against all the engineering of this. It's making my brain hurt. But that would be interesting to consider. Thank you, I'm done.
Okay. Ken?
All set.
Andy?
No, I'm all set. Same as just
Oh, yeah? That's, any questions or
I
comments?
just, I understand, we see the water, I live in Arch Meadow.
Okay.
We walk down there every Saturday morning, and we see the water in the basins, we always question why the water is there.
yeah.
So I guess this sounds fairly simple, what they're talking about, I'm a little lost, but
Yeah,
it sounds like not a major problem, that's all I care about.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And it has a fence around the basin, so
Yeah.
from a safety perspective,
Yeah,
the public can't.
Yeah,
can't-
you know, no
yeah.
question about that.
Okay, don't see any other questions or comments, so we'll close the hearing. And you're asking for a 3-year extension tonight, too?
Yes, on the order conditions.
And when does your initial order?
This month, isn't it?
Yeah, January.
Yeah,
Oh, is it?
just got it in time, yeah.
Just made it then?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, excellent.
Kind of coincidental.
Yeah, so when we issue the amended order conditions, we'll just put the new date on.
Okay. All right. So let's go on to,
Undo motions.
yeah, I'm gonna do the motions, yeah, we don't have that many.
Yeah, you've only got 3, so.
Right, so,
That's what
I make a motion, we issue an order condition at 7-9 Park Street Place to build a shed.
Is there anything we want to impose on them? Not really, I can't, that's pretty far away. Yep.
Which
Do
one
we
was that
have
one?
a-
Sorry.
Park Street.
That's the shed addition
Yeah.
to the garage, and that was well.
No, I didn't have any, I had no extra notes, so, other than just removing this.
Yeah, it was 45 feet from the wetland resource, so I don't think we had any conditions.
Just, do you
We
want to
have
get?
a second on it, Ken?
Say, do you want to get rid of the, we usually haven't removed the surplus spoils.
Oh, okay.
That's just a.
Okay,
boilerplate
yeah,
that's-
yep, no, definitely, okay.
I'll second.
And, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye. I make a motion, we issue an order of conditions at 180, 200, and 228 Hartford Turnpike for the modification of the drainage system and issue a 3-year extension.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
And we issued our negative on his request RDA, so he's all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Roy.
You too.
No DEP number.
Is there any discussion on 658 Boston Turnpike?
Hmm?
That's continued.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do have ideas for different trees.
Do we have, to do the negative determination? Do we sign anything on that?
Yeah, it should be around, should be signed when all comes.
Determination of, okay, there it is.
Yeah,
Is that it?
should be there, hopefully.
All right.
Should be just the 3 to sign.
Is there anything?
Enforcement orders.
Yeah, nothing substantive on the enforcement orders, they're still working on, well, Oregon Ave, I'm still having trouble finding the actual owner, and delivering them the original enforcement, but the other two, the last expulsion, they're still working with consultants on getting it, you know, after the, well, 29 Redlands gonna be an after the fact, that's the one where they already ripped up the front yard, and we told them to at least get it stabilized. But I'll follow up with them for next month and get an update.
Certificates of compliance tonight, any?
Yeah, we've got a few actually, because we didn't do any last month, so. All right.
How are they?
I think the only one we would not, 935 we're waiting on, we're waiting on them to do some drainage improvements out there. What's the other one? Old Faith.
Which one's Andy? I can't hear you.
Sorry, 935 Main Street.
That's one we're going for?
No, that's one we're holding, all the rest, I think. So we'll start, so 97 Stony Hill Road, we're
Yeah.
all set.
Okay.
So we went out and visited them all yesterday.
We'll be passing along the advance because.
Yeah.
The White House,
Well, plus it needs erosion, yeah.
and then
88 Old Faith Road, we went out yesterday, the work's all completed, but there's still a lot of barren soil, so we're gonna recommend they get some erosion control in there and get it stable, because it was already starting to rill down into the wetland, that one's already got, that's got 3 orders on it. One enforcement and,
Oh, goodness.
that's the guy that built the patio, so
Oh, goodness.
and they're not selling it, so I don't think there's a rush, so I would hold on that one. 168 South Pinsig, we're ready to close out. This is 9 Bayview, we're all set. We recommend issuing for that one. Alright. Let's make sure I come back. 348 South Pinsig, we're all set, we'd recommend issuing a certificate for that one. And then 9-4 Claremont, that was the after the fact filing for the patio in the back, so obviously recommend closing that one out too. Okay? Yeah, the next thing is the 2023 meeting schedule, so.
Are they all working out to be the third Tuesday?
Yeah, third Tuesday and then the Thursday, yep. And then the submission date's the Thursday before, because we were gonna do the Friday, and then we realized that we have to get the community advocate ads in on the Friday, so we put it back to Thursday.
All right, so we want to take a vote on that, Andy?
Yeah, if you could just vote to approve it.
I want to just make that motion, Kento.
I make a motion, we approve the meeting dates as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then the only thing now is the wetland bylaw. Again, I don't know if you wanna, I mean, the plan would be, I think, if we'd like to get it on the town meeting for next year, so.
Do we have a sample one? Did you,
Yeah, I did upload one, I think it was the,
is it on the Google?
yeah, it's on the Google Drive, yeah, Paxton, and then I basically just took it and updated for ours. So the only thing really we'd have to figure out is fees for, filing fees.
So how would that work? This is my question on the fees.
Yep.
Fees,
Can I take it?
the planning board has fees,
Get it.
building inspector has fees, everybody has fees. How much would the fee be?
Well, that's, I think, what we'd have to, I mean, we could look at what other towns do. Some do,
But why do we need the fee? What is it supported? What's the fee for?
well, it would go in towards our conservation fund, really, at this point. 'Cause it's, I mean, staffing is paid out of, various other funds,
Goes
but,
to me.
yeah. But other than that, yes.
My concern is that the homeowner, the residents that come in for an order, they're getting beat to death on different things, permits and building permits and all these, they add up taxes and whatnot. I just would like to keep
So
the
those are
fees,
taxes.
I would like to keep the fee to a minimum.
The only other thing it covers is the legal notice. When we put out, a lot of the times we don't get paid back for that. There's really no way to recoup that. So as long as the legal notice, or the fee covered the amount of the legal notice,
What is that amount?
Usually
it
around-
varies a little bit, but it's around $50.
I mean,
It could be a little bit more if they're, more verbose
Right.
legal notices, but it probably gets up to,
Because right now, our take doesn't even cover the legal notice.
No, we get a half of the state fee, so
Yeah,
for
we
a
get-
single-family home, it's
No, I know, it's
what,
like
52
40-something
It's
bucks.
$47 and change. Yeah, there's not.
That's
so yeah, that
town
doesn't
share.
even cover the cost of legal notice.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the fees need to be, I mean, we could leave the fees, just to cover the legal ads and not charge anything. I mean, it's not, it's more about, once we have the bylaw in effect, then it makes, superseding order of conditions a lot more, they have to go to Superior Court now. They can't just go to DEP and get a amended order of conditions or superseded order of condition.
Well-
And then obviously it solidifies our buffer zones that we always.
I mean, otherwise, the town could subsidize it too. I mean, you can look at it
Well,
that way too.
I could see that we should be made whole with the fee. We shouldn't be paying for the ads and whatnot. So perhaps come back to us with a nominal, what the fee would be.
Yeah, okay.
And then we all have a copy of the bylaw, I assume. We can read it. And I think we should just.
Yeah,
look
other than
at
that, it was, I think I highlighted, just dates and.
Yep.
And the other thing would be enforcement orders. I mean, now we can charge a fee for enforcement orders, I think. Those are the big ones, really.
Maybe, Andy, could you send a note when you put it in Google Drive so we can take a look at it?
Oh, it's already in there,
I
so.
mean, when you're
Oh,
gonna
when we
revise
copy it
it.
over, yeah, absolutely, yeah. When we put the fee in, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's only, right now, it's 3 pages.
So basically, it mirrors our guidance.
It would mirror our guidance, yeah. Actually, right now, it has a 15-foot setback and a 30-foot, because, again, that's just Paxton, so I just copied it verbatim. So, when we made for new construction, you might want the 30, maybe for residential, like that addition today, maybe the 15-foot's more appropriate. Maybe that's where we do the difference for addition versus new construction. Other than that, it would, yeah, so basically there would be the bylaw and then there would be the, we'd have.
When do you need to know this for the annual town meeting?
I gotta check with the town manager and warrants to do, but it's not till, I want to say April.
So we have time.
Oh, yeah, we've got time, it's just we only meet once a month, so yeah.
It goes
We
by
should-
fast.
It goes fast.
We should plan to finish it up by March, I would think.
I'll check with the town manager what the deadline is for warrants. I mean, we can always put it in as a placeholder, and that gives us a little time to,
Yeah.
get the details before we actually go to town meeting, but, yeah, so there'd be the wetland bylaw and the regulations, which basically mirror each other, but.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, that sounds good, yeah.
At least we have our guidance memorialized.
No, that-
We
make
run up
it easy.
against it, and
Yeah.
it's always been an issue, but
Yeah.
for the most part, people try to
Yeah.
attain it, but
We've had it thrown back
Occasionally
at
they
us.
push.
they push, and then
Yeah.
you have.
And now, the last few DEP has sided with the applicant and not us.
Correct.
Yeah, so
No, I
we're
think.
losing the battle.
I think it's time.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
All right, then we'll punish the fees and that's
All
it.
right, so are we all set tonight?
That's it, that's all I
Make a
got.
Motion, we adjourn.
All right.
Second?
Second.
9
All in
o'clock.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good job.